ain't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's your boy Ernie the Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, so today's video, we're going to be talking about Uncanny X-Men number 13. Once again, we've gotten back to brass tacks, but we're kicking off a new story arc, the Dark Artery, and I'm really enjoying it. I am really thoroughly enjoying this. We're done with all that x-manhunt crap. We're back to brass tacks. It's really good to really get back into this. And Gale does not disappoint with the storyline. This is a storyline that I was initially kind of hesitant about because, for the past few issues of Uncanny, they've been teasing the introduction of a new character, one that is going to be very important to the history of mutant kind. I was very skeptical about that. Not because of Gale, but because, just a lot of times when editorial at Marvel is like,
oh, we're going to introduce this new character. It's going to be the most important thing ever. Oh my God, it's going to be so important.
It usually ends up landing like a wet fart. And I am happy to report, not the case. Not the case at all. I just gotta say, I really appreciate Gale's level of attention to detail, to history in this. There's a lot of stuff. I could literally sit here all day and tell you all of the different things that Gale snuck into this story that are very indicative of Black history in America, dating all the way back to Jim Crow. I expect this level of writing and attention to detail from Black writers. I do not expect it from white writers. I'm just gonna put that out there. So the fact that Gale was able to do this and actually committed to doing this, like, honestly, chef's kiss. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. I honestly, I'll just go ahead and say it up front. 10 out of 10 on this issue. No notes at all. There's no notes on this. This is it's too good. It's too good. Like, as a matter of fact, the only thing actually, I take it back. I'm not going to say 10 out of 10. I'm going to say 9 out of 10 because if there, and there is a note, there's only one note. I want more. I feel like Kirsten Dunst in Interview with the Vampire. I'm like,
I want some more.
that's where I'm at right now with this. But I'm here for it. I'm here for it. But no, okay, so what is this issue about? So this issue is about a mutant by the name of Henrietta Benjamin, and she goes by Miss Henry or Henry for short. But all of this, takes place in the before times. To my understanding, I don't think we're ever actually told when this issue actually takes place, when it's dealing with the flashbacks regarding Henry. I will say it's pretty obvious that it's very likely after Reconstruction, which for those of us, like roughly like 1877, and we'll just kind of have to go from there. But it's definitely like an 1800s kind of vibe. But basically what you need to know, yes, Henry is a mutant. And not only is Henry a mutant, but she is also the mutant daughter of a mutant mother. We never really actually learned what her mother could do, and we never really even learned exactly what Henry herself is capable of. All we know is that at a later point in the issue that she does get the red glowy eye thing going on that is very reminiscent of characters like Cyclops and even some other various characters. But just like when I saw it initially, I saw her eye light up. I was like, ooh, I wonder if she has like optic blast or something, or maybe she has some other power, but she never uses it. And that's kind of really the point of this, is that she is a mutant and she has hidden herself. She's living under the radar, low key as all get out, and trying not to be noticed. And I think it's very telling that the one time we actually see even the slightest hint of her power is when she is dealing with overt racism, like directly in her face racism. And it's at the hands of a character who, I don't know if this character has any ties to anyone else, but I'm pretty sure as the story goes on, maybe we might learn a little bit more. But there's a man working for an organization referred to as the Service, which sounds very eerily like some Pinkerton type shit, like, but not necessarily to catch runaway slaves or anything of that magnitude, at least not in the strictest sense, but more of a mutant catcher. And it sounds like even more specifically not just mutants, but with a particular focus on Black mutants. His name is Jacob Miller, and I could very easily see his organization, the Service, being like a precursor for the Purifiers or the Sapien League or any other anti-mutant hate group. You could really easily put any of those together and probably add them up 1 + 1 and get 2. But getting past that, he seems very zoned in on the possibility that Henry is a mutant, or is at the very least a mutant sympathizer. There's also some hint, and I don't want to say hint, it's less of a hint, it's actually really just more obvious nod, that the Midnight M that we have been seeing pop up in Gail Simone's run, the hand gesture that is meant to showcase to another person that they are a mutant, and or a mutant ally, or a mutant in danger. And it's a symbol that has been very effectively used. I really like it. I've talked about this before, how it is very similar to the universal hand gesture for, technically it can be used with anyone, male or female or MB, regardless of gender, but more specifically used for women to showcase that they are in a potentially abusive situation and to ask for help without drawing the attention of their abuser. It's actually very much a nod to that, and we see it in this issue. We see Henry recognize it for what it is, even it being referred to as the Midnight M, and also we see that she ignores it because she's not trying to draw any attention to herself. And Jacob Miller in this issue, he was bird dogging her so hard that he even recognized that a person on the train threw the Midnight M at her. He doesn't call it that himself. He refers to it as just like a hex, but like the fact that he was able to see it, he recognized it for what it was, and that is why he is on her like white on rice. Well, that just kind of explains it all. But it just kind of showcases that the Midnight M is not some new thing that just cropped up in the From the Ashes era. It also is kind of weird that it's never come up really before, but in a lot of ways, I could kind of see Gale using this as a means of kind of highlighting how oftentimes major parts of history often get lost in translation, and that oftentimes, not just to people who would be outside of the circle that would be familiar with it, but even to people who are inside the circle of it. Kind of like how we as Black people lost our history in a lot of ways because of slavery, because of white supremacy, lost our history, and sometimes in a lot of ways now are reclaiming it and bringing it back, you know, putting it back at the forefront. And there's also some other things too that also kind of crop up like that. There's moments where Henry, she is scratching in symbols that kind of would remind you of the Krakoan language that was cropped up during the Krakoan era, but it's not, at least not as far as I can tell. It seems like its own set of symbols, but they're very similar in a lot of ways, but used in a way to be a message that only mutants would understand, no differently from the Krakoan dialect. And I like how in this, not only is it that, but it's also very reminiscent of another part of Black history in America. Like when we see these signs, at least in Henry's case, she's using it as a way to show that what direction she's heading to try and get to the dark artery, which we're going to talk about more here in just a moment. But and also there's another point where we see there's a sign elsewhere where it's stated that, hey, this is not a safe place for us, that this is a place where you're going to be watched. So be careful, don't make any sudden moves. So it's almost like a Black mutant way to have what is effectively the Green Book. And when I say Green Book, the actual Negro motorist Green Book that was written back in 1936 by Victor Hugo Green. And this was a book that was used to be able to warn Black people about where and where not was safe to travel. But at the end of the day, Henry's aim is to get to the dark artery. You kind of spend a little bit of time jumping back and forth between the Outliers and Henry in this issue, and largely because Death Dream has discovered the dark artery, and we learn that it actually is in Haven, Louisiana, not too terribly far from Mr. Marcus's Haven house, where the Uncanny X-Men have been, calling their home since issue number 1. And it also comes to reason that Mr. Marcus and his family, they are aware of the dark artery. They know what it is, they know what's out there, but they don't really mess with it, and they don't really try and stop the Outliers from going out to it. They just kind of look on almost somberly, but maybe the more appropriate word is stoically. as they get ready to go out and do what they're about to do. They know that they can't stop them. They know they're going to find it. They need to find it, and they're not going to really try and stop them from doing it. It just kind of lets you know that Mr. Marcus is very aware of everything that's happening. Why it makes even more sense that he was so open to having the Uncanny X-Men pull up and stay at his home, that he didn't really ask a lot of questions. That when, obviously he knew Gambit from, Gambit's past, but, why he was so opening and welcoming to mutants, why he seems to have some kind of tie. And I don't want to, say this so declaratively, but I honestly would not be shocked if Henry, for whatever reason or another, is in some way related to Marcus's family. Like, I don't know how that would work out. I mean, definitely there's a difference in family name. Marcus St. Jr. and Henrietta Benjamin, they don't really go together, but who knows? Maybe, obviously, Benjamin is her maiden name. Maybe she gets married later on and becomes a St. Junior's. We don't know that yet, but I feel like there is definitely a reason why Marcus and his family are there. It would only make sense. And we already know that he has mutant heritage in his lineage just based on the fact that his daughter is a mutant. And, that's a whole other story altogether. But the Outliers, they get involved in this. Death Dream feels an intrinsic tie to this because the Dark Artery is a grave site. It's a grave site marked with an X made out of obsidian, something that, as even pointed out by Calico, obsidian should not be around in Louisiana. Not only that, this is a grave site that is underground, which, for those that don't know, that is unusual in and of itself because of the fact that Louisiana is below the sea level. That's why they don't have graves underground very much in cities like New Orleans. And it also is pretty common to not see graves below ground in a lot of parts of Louisiana, especially the further south you go. So yeah, all of this is incredibly unusual and should not be happening. There's also torches lit inside the place that have been lit for hundreds of years. Like, who's lighting these torches? And not only that, these grave sites, who are they for? Like, where do they, like what is the origin of all this? And we know that Henry was trying to bring her mother's remains to this very place. So it begs the question, is Henry buried here? Is she roaming about the place? We don't know. All we know that there's a journal that Ransom picks up that, while it doesn't look like the journal that Henry had, I wonder if there's a connection there too. That's something we'll kind of have to wait to see what happens there too. I do also want to point out something I actually been meaning to talk about, and I just never did because there was never a good point for it where it came up with Ransom is something that actually happened a few issues ago. I think at least like maybe 3 or possibly 4 issues back, like kind of early and maybe just before the X-manhunt shenanigans. But there was a point where it was actually revealed who Ransom really is, like who he is connected to in the greater Marvel Comics universe. I actually missed it when I read the issue before. I think by the time I did the video for it, I actually finally paid it some level of attention. I think it was just a point where I was kind of checking out as I was reading the issue. I don't know what it is. Yeah, sometimes that happens. But I was reminded this week, I was like, oh yeah, Ransom is the cousin of Sunspot. And for those that are questioning that, there's a point where he actually gets a phone call. We see on his phone, it says, Robert DaCosta, and Robert DaCosta, that's Sunspot. He's on the phone and he literally refers to Ransom as cousin. Whether or not that's actually like true familial tie is another story altogether. But I mean, I generally don't call people cousin that aren't necessarily my cousin. So there you go. Take that how you wanna. But I do appreciate that the Outliers, they have found this. We don't really know exactly what else is gonna happen with this, but we do know whatever comes next, the Man Thing is gonna be involved. So it's definitely gonna get weird. It's gonna get wacky, and I really can't wait to learn more about what's going on with Henrietta. As far as the Gambit side of things, there's not really a whole heap of a lot to say there, other than the fact that we now know why Soderong gave Gambit the left eye of power, which is an eye of Agamotto. We now know why he did it. It really was just, more because of the situation that he found himself in. But it turns out Soderong is actually quite fond of Gambit. Like, he doesn't love him or nothing, but I mean, he finds him an interesting person and kind of thinks of him as somebody who's almost like a kindred spirit. But he's come back earlier than what was initially planned because he is trying to warn Gambit of something that's about to happen, and he's willing to give Gambit an easy out. on holding on to the eye. And it's that Gambit is going to start becoming a slave to the hunger that the eye enforces upon its wielder. Something that Soderong is perfectly okay with dealing with, but Gambit probably not so much. It's heavily implied that he's going to start wanting to consume flesh. And he said it'll start out small. It will be small animals. And then eventually, it will be bigger things and maybe even people he cares about. What's really wild to me is that even in the face of learning this information, Gambit doesn't necessarily give an answer. And I'm almost curious as to what it is he's going to say, but I think that's yet another thing we're going to have to wait to see like how that plays out. But ultimately, this is the price of power. Is Gambit willing to give it up? I mean, clearly he didn't think to bring the eye with him when he runs off with Soderong. So maybe he's not as attached to it as maybe Soderong might think he is. But I feel like that's also one of those situations that maybe there's a reason why we haven't seen Gambit throw it around very often. He has used it in some situations that where it definitely didn't need to be used, but I don't know. Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see.